Following the recent news, I'm joined now by employment lawyer at Samfiru Tumarkin LLP and host of Ask a Lawyer, Jon Pinkus, for more on the legalities that come with dating in a workplace. So I have to first ask you, are there any laws prohibiting workplace relationships in Ontario, including those between bosses and subordinates? In other words, did Mayor John Tory do anything illegal?
Well, no. Strictly speaking, workplace relationships are legal, provided that they are consensual. The problem typically arises where you have a relationship between a manager and a subordinate, because the way that the law typically treats that, at least in the wrongful dismissal context, which is where I operate, is that that may actually not be a fully consensual relationship, and in certain circumstances, if the circumstances are extreme enough, can even be cause for dismissal.
Can a company create a policy about dating in the office?
Oh, absolutely. A company can do that. I think the real question when a company does that is if the company is sufficiently large. It may not be such a big deal for a small company, but for a large company, let's say if there's hundreds or thousands of employees and they're spending most of their day with each other, is that going to impact solicitation and retention? But love is not a prohibited ground under the Human Rights Code, and you're not allowed to discriminate against people on the basis of family status or marital status, but you can discriminate against workplace relationships.
So can an employee be fired for not disclosing a relationship with a coworker?
In certain circumstances, an employee can be fired without human rights liability, for example. That wouldn't really be a concern. The concern here would be more if an employee has had a relationship and the company had a policy against those relationships and the employee lied about it, that might be dishonesty and the employer may have cause to terminate. And an employer can terminate an employee just because they don't want that employee to be in a workplace relationship. But in the vast majority of cases, they're going to owe that employee severance.
Mayor Tory has said that this was a consensual relationship, and if it's not illegal, then what is it any business of the public?
Well, I think in this case, from what I gather, and I read Mayor Tory's statement with great interest because I myself live in Toronto, it seems like the decision that he made was more of a political decision than a legal one. As an employment lawyer, I don't know exactly what the mechanics are here, and there's various mechanisms that apply to people who hold public office that don't apply for the vast majority of the public. But this really sounds like Mayor Tory just decided that he knew with the controversy that was coming down, he knew how it was going to impact his job and his ability to do his job, and decided that it wasn't worth it for political and practical reasons.
Because she is a member or was a member of his staff, what kind of precedent does this set, if at all?
Well, it perhaps sets a political precedent. It certainly doesn't set any legal precedent. It was a voluntary decision that Mayor Tory made, and it sounds like most people agree it was the right decision to make. But it does reflect the changing climate, and I think that people know how this is going to go now, whether it's in the public sector or the private sector. And we saw this in the private sector recently with some prominent CEOs who've had to step down because of consensual relationships with subordinates. And what we're seeing both in Canada and the US is as soon as those comes to light, pretty quickly those people resign voluntarily because they know the fallout that is going to arrive afterwards.
John, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. Jon Pinkus is an employment lawyer here in Toronto.